We'll now go out in two parts, part one and part two. Okay,
Okay.
here we go. Part two.
Yeah. So part two, Sarah, this is leading into experiential meditation.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. We have everybody here. So that's the most important part, of course, that we directly experience what we're talking about here, and it's not entirely conceptual. And the thing about awake and relating is that it requires some awakeness. And that oftentimes brings a reaction up in people. Is one of the things that I feel most moved to share about all of this is that awakening is immediately available to all of us. And that one of the greatest obstacles, in fact, I just got back yesterday from being on retreat with Adyashanti for 7 days. And he said that in the 22 years that he's been teaching, the greatest obstacle he sees to awakening for people is the belief that it's out of their reach, the belief that it's something, way up there, far away from them, or in the future, or not accessible to them. Some belief that this can't happen for me right now, because it is so incredibly immediately available, so much so that is why we miss it. So awakened relating starts with just seeing that this is available and getting at least a glimpse of what this is that's awake within us right now, not after we do more years of practice or whatever, but right now. And so I'd like to start with that and what I call the 3 R's of awaken relating, which is, first of all, recognizing this that's awake and present within us right now. And maybe some of you already have that recognition, so you can just, follow this and be with it. And if some of you don't, then just being open to the possibility that this is immediately available and you can get at least a glimpse of this. And that's all we have to start with, because that's often another, I've been in the non-dual spiritual world for like 25 years. So I know all the kind of beliefs and concepts and ideas that people have. And there's a lot of belief around that this is something that that not only is far-reaching, but if it happens, it needs to happen all at once, and then there it is, and it's there from there on. You don't start with just a little glimpse. It's like you see the whole thing, and there it is. You're awake. And for the vast majority of people, it starts with a glimpse, and it's a gradual unfolding over time, with maybe some big experiences mixed in there, but it's really a gradual unfolding for most people. So I'm going to start with the glimpse and the recognition, and then move to the other R's, which are resting and relying. So just become comfortable. Probably best to close your eyes and just take a little bit of time to shift from focusing outward to focusing inward. Maybe by resting attention on the breath for a little while and letting the breath move in and out of the belly consciously. Just watching the breath rise and then feeling the breath let go. And on each exhale, just having a sense of letting go, just letting go of whatever's in the moment. Just like we talked about earlier, giving the system time to settle, even though we're not settling from high stress arousal, just normal range. We want to give it time to settle. just by breathing, paying attention to the breathing, and gently, lovingly bringing the tension back to the breathing if it goes away into thought. And I'm just going to give this a minute or two to just let you, and in your own way, quiet down, settle, feeling your body. Sometimes it's helpful to focus on not just the breath, but the sensations in the whole body, or sounds. We're just not going to be focusing on the thinking mind right now. So we just want the body to relax. And that's really what we're doing with the mind too, just relaxing it. And letting everything be. The more we can let everything be, the faster it will settle. And as the body-mind settles, you might get a sense of a kind of a stillness in the body. Sometimes it's easier to get a sense of the stillness in the body than in the mind. It's just about recognizing what's always and already here when we quiet down the noise. And even if it's not quieting down, it can be possible to just stop the thinking for a moment, just intentionally. Just imagine that if someone said, stop thinking for 2 seconds, or, your life depends on it. See if you can be with a pause. And just repeat that as many times as you need to, just to stop. And in that pause, notice what's here. You're still here. And it's not something that can be defined or pointed to, but there's a presence, or an energy or space that's aware. In that pause, we get a glimpse of it because the constant stream of thought covers it up. It's like a background. This aware space is always here, but the constant stream of thoughts can kind of cover it up. Just like a movie screen where there's always the screen, but we're engaged with the movie, we lose sight of the screen. If you turn the movie off for a few seconds, you see the screen. So it doesn't matter how small the glimpse is of that. You just get a sense like, oh yeah, there's something there. There's something that's an energy, something that's aware. It's often called both empty and aware. And just one little glimpse of that is the beginning of awakening to what we really are. That awareness is the doorway into infinity. That maybe at first glimpse, it seems like not much. Like, oh, okay, so I'm aware. I see I'm aware. But if it's turned to and rested in repeatedly, it blossoms into greater and greater depths of love and peace and joy and wisdom and silence. So we meet it wherever we're at. Maybe we already have fairly deep knowing of this, or maybe this is the first glimpse, or maybe it's difficult to even get a glimpse. And if that's true, just try to keep pausing the thinking and get a sense. And it's so relaxed, not trying to get something or straining to see what I'm talking about. It's just very relaxed, just open. So simple. It's too simple, really, to see what's already here. And as that once that's seen, then we have the opportunity to return to it and rest in it, even if it's for another second or two before the mind takes us away. So then rather than coming back to the breath or some other focus, we come back to this glimpse of the space, this aware space. That's the ground of all experience and pervades all experience. And it somehow most often requires our heartfelt commitment, our devotion to it. We even have one glimpse of this, then that's the most valuable thing a human being could have. To give their wholehearted devotion to that. And if all you can remember is one couple seconds a day, you start there. Or maybe you can remember it 20, 50 times a day. It doesn't matter. You be where you're at, but you're devoted to it wherever you're at. Just resting in that. And it grows through this attending, through this devotion and returning and resting. It grows from seconds to more and more continuous over time. And it doesn't matter how fast or slow that is. You just remain devoted to this that's most true within you. And the more we return to it and deepen in it, the more we have an opportunity to rely on it. We have direct access to infinite wisdom, infinite power, infinite safety, security, love, everything that we have ever wanted. right here, looking out of our eyes right now. And some feel it more in the heart area. Breathing into the heart sometimes is easier to get a sense of this still presence that's here. Then we have a chance to rely on it. All the ways that we get moved around in this life and knocked around, and there's something to rest in, there's something to trust, there's something that holds us always, that guides us always, that has a wisdom far greater than the mind. The mind's only wisdom is when this informs it. It has no wisdom of its own. So knowing where to turn, to first recognize our own being and devote ourselves to it, to rest in it repeatedly, and then to rely on it. That's the go-to. That's what we turn to. And there's actually a fourth R that didn't make it into my book that I'll bring here for the first time, which is realize. As we learn to rest in it and rely on it over time, we realize that we are this. We are this ground. We are this presence that permeates everything. It's the background of everything. It is what we are and what everything is. So just become aware of your whole body, the sensations in your body. Any sense of this, it manifests in many different ways. Can just feel like a stillness or silence. It might be a quality of love in the heart, just a simple peace, kind of a presence. It's different for everybody, really. Has whatever qualities it shows itself with. Just noticing that as you feel the whole body, be aware of the sounds. And then slowly opening the eyes when you're ready. So you can take your time, and when you're ready, if anybody wants to share their experience, if that's something that you glimpsed at for the first time, or what weren't able to, or if it deepened what you already knew, whatever you'd like to share. Because we're all in different places with this. Feels very quiet. It's nice. Everybody really quieted down. Beautiful.
Yeah, such a deep drop in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all of us. I can really feel right now. Often when I'm in a relationship, maybe I forget to go into this space together with my partner. Maybe we get so caught up in a worldly relating.
Mm-hmm.
How important it is to meet here consistently as well.
Right. That's really the only place we truly meet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're not really meeting otherwise, not truly. So we can meet being to being consciously. That's the intimacy we all long for. And it is very nourishing and so important to relationships to go there together. And there's a eye-gazing meditation I have in my book about that. Is one of the ways we can connect is looking in each other's eyes and connecting with that shared being and remembering that together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remembering to connect from here and
Mm-hmm.
speaking from here when we need to. Now let's see, Peter, I'm gonna unmute you.
Thank you. I noticed that when I get into this quiet space, the voice that comes up, or there is a lot of energy around being seen. And I also noticed how I really didn't want to speak. I had my camera turned off earlier, and it seems to be a big part of my personal drama is around being seen. And it is a relief to consider that it's really optional to entertain all these thoughts, especially when I'm seeing, it doesn't seem to be a mandatory channel to tune into.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
absolutely.
yet it's almost a default setting for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thoughts are a default setting for all of us. This is, millions of lifetimes or whatever of practicing being, in the stream of thought. So this is a new evolutionary leap for human beings to not be listening to that all the time, to recognize that that's not pure wisdom. That's just a lot of conditioned activity that's just going on and on and on, and that it's not who we are, certainly not the totality of what we are. What we're exploring right now is what else is here. There's something else here that's more fundamental to what we are, more essential, and more real, more true, more wise, um, and to just begin to detach that identity from the thought stream and drop it down into a deeper ground that we can rest in, is huge. And that is, just happens, little by little for most people with great commitment. And we need to understand the importance of it to be really committed, right? We understand that living in the mind stream all the time is really getting us nowhere, but more suffering a lot of the time. And certainly isn't resolving anything around relationships or anything else. that we need to find a deeper source in ourselves, and it's available, it's accessible.
Yeah, when you mentioned earlier about tapping into this space for seconds or just for glimpses, short periods of time, I remembered that a friend, I've been making attempts to meditate for a long time, and would just I used to argue it's the willpower or the motivation that isn't there, or the inner peace. So anyhow, this friend said, why don't you just do 5 minutes? Do 5 minutes. I think it was about a year ago, and then I did 5 minutes for a while, and now I'm up to 30 minutes. And it starts, yeah, I think I also heard Arya in one of the meditation courses say, do shorter periods of time, and then something will happen, and so on. And so I'm excited to realize that I seem to finally get into a new loop where I can get out of that default setting.
It's important to find out what works for us, and it doesn't matter if the person next to us is doing 40 minutes a day, you're only doing 5, and judging that. We have to find what really works for us. And also, when it comes to direct experience with this silent presence of awareness that's always here, most people can only glimpse that for a few seconds initially, because before the mind comes flooding back in. So then we got it down to 2 seconds when it comes to really going straight to the source. Yeah. Does that make sense? The difference?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
You can't, most people can't do 5 minutes of that right off. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Thank you for saying it. I can relate to it. I do it also. I swim a lot, and sometimes I just swim, and soon, yeah. So I experiment with it, and it's very short when there is just the body moving and the water and the sound.
The importance is to just do it, consistency. And Adyashanti says that too, consistency. And I've found that in my own experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jane. Hi, Jane.
Unmute. Okay, I did it. Okay, I just wanted to thank everyone. Synchronistically, I just moved from the Bay Area to Grass Valley.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a couple months ago, I saw you in Grayton at Tomas's before I left. And so I've been alone out in the woods, out in the wonderful, amazing woods for several months. And it's been challenging and lots of other things, but the thing I didn't realize, I just realized the importance of a relationship in Sangha just at this moment, because as you did that meditation, it was like a veil slipped off me. The trees are alive, the birds are singing, energy surging through me. I mean, it's a remembering. And I thought I was there, but I wasn't there at all. There was all this stuff that it just takes the other to, get deeper. And I just thrilled. I'm so glad I came.
That's so true. And like the Buddha said, he talked about the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and that they're all equally as important. The Buddha being the teacher, the Dharma, the teachings, and then the Sangha, all of us. And that we either need the teacher in their transmission and the Sangha, to support us. And it really makes a difference. Human beings are very social, relational creatures. You do better in relationship, yeah. And that includes
I was just going to say my community really was like open circle, and I wondered what would happen when I moved. Mm-hmm. And then this morning you're here, and it just seems so important. I'd never really seen it so clearly.
Well, it's my intention to set up some kind of support for Awaken Relating, because that's definitely needed, both through these kinds of things, webinars and workshops. And I would like to do some in-person ones in Grass Valley and maybe a group in Grass Valley, so we can be in touch about that.
That'd be great. I knew you years ago as a non-dual psychotherapist.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
No, Jane, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I can feel it.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, here it goes.
Yes, you're beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
Grateful for this moment.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous coming off of you. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I was also struck by just the particular quality of everyone here, how this feeling of honored I'm feeling in my own heart, particularly in this call, the level of authenticity, sincerity, maturity, devotion. I really feel that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we still have some time for other shares. It doesn't have to be questions, just sharing what's ever true or arising or real for you right now. Bodhi, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So, in contrast to what's been shared, what I want to share right now is that the last few years I felt drawn to do a lot of solitudeness retreat, which was new for me. Over decades of practice, I never had any monastic tendencies. I've always been quite engaged in the world and all kinds of relationships. But this was a very strong calling, and I followed it. And the greatest learning for me in this context that we're pointing to today was that in removing the trigger of relationship and all the content that comes up, like significantly, you can't remove all of it, right? You still have a body and reactions still going on and stuff that comes up in practice if you're doing a lot of it or whatever is happening in retreat. But in significantly removing a lot of that everyday worldly relating activity, guess what is still going on? And I was able to much more clearly, I'd seen it before a lot, but much more clearly see and identify the conditioned triggering default that was happening in the space of conditioned mind. And I would say more deeply, reliably, and stably train this returning or homing instinct. So it's very interesting and paradoxical to me that this is about relating like to a relative other. And isn't it interesting that in solitude and in solo retreat, how much more clearly that conditioned default content triggering craziness is seen, and then there isn't this, you could say, excuse or habit of blaming or shirking, projecting the responsibility onto event, situation, person, other, world, right? It's going on in my conditioned mind. And then, the next step, of course, in seeing that clearly, the capacity to take ultimate responsibility for that and then go forward with that into the world, which is quite a leap.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of meandering, but I wanted to be clear about what I was sharing. And so I'll just leave it at that and invite Lynn Marie, your comment or the comment of anyone else.
Yes, we need both interactions in relationship with others and time of retreat. What you were describing there is what you could also be called retreat, which I did last week, where I was in silence for a week. I wasn't relating to others, and I was, being with my own experience and seeing what these, as you say, the same condition patterns coming up, even without being engaging overtly with others and being in silence, or even not on retreat with other people, just being alone for periods of time and inward and contemplative, that we all need some of that too. It's a balance of both. And did the recognition part, recognizing some sense of what this is we are, did everybody get a sense of that? Is there anybody that still had trouble with noticing what's always here? Did everybody get a sense of that? Yeah? Great, because that's the most important thing. And oftentimes we don't value that so much. We just get a glimpse of, well, I'm aware. Okay, yeah, I know I'm aware. So, it's really important to know how valuable that is and to keep returning directly to that awareness and let that grow and deepen into an infinite amount of everything you've ever wanted, including love. So to value that's it. It's not like looking for something bigger, more dramatic, more something. That's the mind. That's the ego mind structure. But just to be with that simple presence repeatedly, that's it. And then we have a chance when we're in life and we're being triggered in relationship or whatever is happening to us, we have a chance, the more we recognize this and the more we return to it, to be able to rely on that in relationship.
Yeah, I'm struck by, what you're pointing to, this devotion to this place, this extraordinary devotion. And I guess what's arising for me is a general concept in the world of devotion to your partner,
Mm-hmm.
And yes, on one level, so true. But there is an interesting kind of misplacement in a way of this devotion toward this one other person that we find in the whole world. And the only place where that's going to be this wellspring, the fruit of that devotion, is this place within. And what happens when all of that devotion gets turned here, as you're pointing. Wow.
And then we see it everywhere.
And then
we see it everywhere, and it's not just one person, because you're right, that's so common in our culture too. It's all about finding the one, and we have the one, and it's just really limiting this truth of who we are and what we can experience greatly. And it's also looking for this in another, and when we fall in love, there's a magical thing that happens where we tap into this deeper presence of love that we both are, and we see that in each other. And there's this experience, whether it's a few days or weeks or months or whatever, there's this experience where all our judgments are suspended. We feel unconditional acceptance of this person, and that beautiful love that we are is seen, and what's reflecting back to itself with each other. And then what happens is we externalize the source of it, and we make it about the other, and then we attach to the other because of it, and that's where all the problem starts. You know, it's like an opening to this deeper love, but it gets covered over by externalizing it, right?
Yeah, and then we kind of subconsciously expect something back. Well, I'm giving all of this devotion, and then all of a sudden, what am I getting back from that? Mm-hmm. And when the devotion is applied to our own being, wow, we get endless, infinite back.
That's right. Infinite.
Only thing it gives actually back. What
we get to share that with the other. Right? Yeah. It's more we find it in ourselves, and ultimately that we actually are that, mm-hmm. and then we naturally share it. It's like backwards from the way it usually is in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't have it here, so I'm going to find it out there in you, and it's just going to be an endless disappointment, ultimately.
Well, we have about 15 minutes left, and 2 hands are raised. So, David, I saw yours first. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, love.
I want to backtrack a bit, go back to the first part of the program. A lot of my relationship issues have been surfaced and dealt with in the corporate workplace. And it's where I've done my spiritual growth, which is actually working through my family of origin trauma. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. The workplace has gone from being a hostile environment to being extremely respectful. And there's an issue that's arisen just recently that I've been asked to address, which in the past I would have had a lot of shame around, but there's absolutely none whatsoever. And it wasn't even addressed in a shameful manner, which was beautiful as well. But so I'm going to arise to address this challenge, but it's opened up a huge arena for me as well to address in the workplace, huge. And so as we were sitting here at the first part of this program, I could really feel what this was opening up was coming from my heart. I was really in touch with it. It's just a huge expansion. It's going to be the benefit for 300 other employees. And it just felt very loving and something new. I've never done this before. This is really getting into new territory. It is kind of like turning the corporate popsicle stand over. Without blaming them, without looking at their side coming from my side of the street. And so there's that part of me. But at the same time, I've got contraction in my gut. And as far as I'm concerned, that's my past traumas from childhood. The trauma saying, don't be seen, we've got to hide, don't do that. And so I've been in process for this for the last 2 weeks. It's got to the stage where it's nearly gone mute on me, but I realize it's a challenge. So it was kind of interesting. It was kind of like awareness was sitting with 2 waves, the wave of the heart and the wave of the gut at the same time. I could feel the call of the heart to expand, to be open, to be conscious, and I could feel the gut go into contraction, unconscious, let's just hide. And I could feel both at the same time. Mm-hmm. Then when we did the meditation, I really went quite deep. And what I did was contractions of the gut, basically that's coming from not being allowed, not allowed. And actually allowed it. I allowed it to not allow, and it all became integrated. But anyway, so I'm back to the first part of the program. It's because I'm still going to accept the challenge of dealing with this workplace situation, and it's coming from the question, I guess, is the heart seems to be wanting to express what is totally present now and moving forward, but the contraction in the gut from the trauma is wanting to hide and hold back in dealing with this situation.
Yes, and just briefly, I want to say that it's important that that gets addressed, that you don't go with the movement of the heart and ignore it. I'm not saying you are, but just to let everybody know, it's important to address that gut that's afraid of being seen or exposed or in fear, to bring the love from the heart down into the gut, to be aware on the level of gut, to bring the awareness down into that and let it be held there. And if needed, get extra help to release that, with others that can help you release that. It just really needs to be attended to. And sometimes, like you said, you can be with them both at the same time, but not to skip over it. That's very important.
Oh, I can't skip over it. Don't worry. Yeah.
And the being seen, I want to just say quickly that somebody else mentioned that too, difficulty in being seen. And that comes up in relationship a lot too. We both really, really want to be seen, and we're really, really afraid of being seen. and it causes a conflict in this and in relationship. But if you've ever just taken time, and if you have somebody you can do this with, to just eye gaze for a while and drop into being together and see that that's looking out of each of your eyes is actually the same thing. You're two completely unique, different expressions of the same thing. And if we can tap into that, you might find it interesting. It always amazes me how if I were to eye gaze with somebody from ego to ego, I would be self-conscious. I wouldn't want to be seen. It would be uncomfortable. And when I drop into being with another person, it's all gone. All the self-consciousness, any concern about being seen, we just can rest together where we're totally connected. So that can help that part of us that's concerned about being seen.
Well, that part is not necessarily being seen. That's part of it. I agree. It's actually being made wrong and not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what the heart is doing is actually wanting to speak its truth,
mm-hmm.
and allowed to speak its truth. So so I see the more the heart being honored. See, the head can get into reaction, and it could say, "Just fuck this." But that doesn't really come in much at all. There's not much. There's really no head stuff. So it's really just honoring the heart's expression, and which is actually the healing of trauma, in a way, in a sense, as I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm. They both need to be honored.
Speaking, huh?
They both need to be honored, the heart and what's happening in the gut with the trauma.
Right.
And the more you honor the trauma and move through that, the more the heart will be able to move into the workplace in the way that you want to. You'll have more of the wholeness of yourself to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really feeling the heart strong about it. It's not overwhelmed with the gut, because it could in the past. Well, of course, in the past, that has been the overwhelming feature has been the gut. The trauma has been overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. And now
to go into hiding, not
right.
speaking up, not even being in touch with what my truth is, even the trauma.
That's right. Well, it's wonderful that the heart is stronger right now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
let's have a few minutes. Is there anybody?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much. David and Lorena. On you.
Thank you. Just what came to my mind around devotion was I have two very adult children. I mean, they're in their 40s, and they are kind of like the partners, you know, devoted to them. And I would put them before my devotion to my awakening. So maybe I would have something I wanted to do around devotion, but they might need something. And all that was about my trauma. So they've become kind of the pain around mothering has become kind of the catalyst for me coming and saying, I have to let this go, because as I awaken, the pain becomes more intolerable. And so in a sense, they've become like these teachers, because now I say yes to my awakening. And as I do that, what's so interesting is they're kind of like in the background now. Like there's not a lot of texting going on. There's this spaciousness, this kind of love that's extending as I just stay in my devotion. And that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Serena. That's beautiful. Yeah. It applies, like I said in the very beginning, what we're talking about applies to all relationships and all of life, you know.
Yeah, a great example of devotion to our inner being first, and what happens after that. Wow, this has been absolutely exquisite, really exquisite. Is there any last things that are arising from you, Lynn Marie, to share today from all of this?
Just to know that you have everything you need. Within you right now, that you are an infinite source of love. You actually are that, and it's expressing itself as each unique individual with no separation, you know, the deep source expressing itself with nobody there but this pure love. And all we have to do is somehow recognize what's always and already here. And that is what holds us and guides us and gives us everything we need. We're so oriented, and especially if there's wounding, oriented towards reaching out, you know, to others, teacher, somebody out there, help me. And so it's just encourage you to just keep going deeper into this source, just whatever, no matter how small the glimpse is, devote yourself to that, because that's the source of everything. And it's right here, and it's immediately available to everybody who wants it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank all of you for coming. I really appreciate it.
So beautiful. And I think I'll say, yeah, check out Lynn Marie's website. And I think what's arising for me to share with you all is that Lynn Marie and I have discussed very briefly exploring the possibility of doing a longer offering. Is that you're still?
Yeah.
Yeah, longer workshop, a weekend, or spread out over a month, or some sort of deeper dive of community together here at some points. And so I think what would help me and us the most would be if you are interested, if you're watching this recording in the next couple weeks, or you are on the call right now, if that's something that would be interesting for you, write an email if you could. If you could, it's good to know if there's resonance.
Yeah,
So
what would be interesting, like just a 4-hour workshop, or all day one, or longer, or an ongoing group for 6 weeks, or whatever would be helpful to you.
Yeah, exactly. The duration, length, the container. So love@nondualcenter.org is where you can write that in, or sarah@nondualcenter.org, and you'll go straight to me. I'm going to unmute everyone now, and would love to hear all your voices saying goodbye.
Oh, can I say one thing?
Oh, sure, yes.
I want to let people know that the publication date for my book, Awakened Relating, is July 1st. And it's available for pre-order on Amazon right now. And Amazon may get books shipped in within.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
I'm muted.
Okay, yeah, I had to mute everyone because there was sound, and then you did too. Yeah, I'm sorry to mention your book. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, I'm not sure what people heard, but it's available for pre-order on Amazon now. Amazon may get the books like mid-June, I think. It's officially published July 1st, so it's coming soon.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds beautiful. You described it when we were talking as, and I can feel it too, it's small, but packed. Like there's like a packed transmission, but in a condensed kind of a way. I can really feel that from this book. Yeah, that's the best way too, in a way. Okay, everyone. And you are working privately as well, Lynn Marie, if anyone's interested in that?
Yes, and largely actually on Zoom or Skype, because I'm transitioning from the Bay Area to the Grass Valley, Nevada City area in the next few months. So I'm still going to the East Bay some, and then more and more online, and establishing myself more here. So I'm kind of in transition. So, working a lot online.
Okay, and your email or your website again, can you say it?
LynnMarieLumiere.com.
Oh yeah, there we go. All right, everybody.
Okay. There's an event page on there that I just started. On there.
All right, everyone. Voices.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Grateful.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So much.
Bye.
Beautiful, beautiful days, nights, and weeks.
Bye.